The first indication that something was wrong came at 3:47 hours, when the radar operator at Nellis Air Force Base went completely silent. Staff Sergeant Martinez had been tracking routine training flights over the Nevada desert for 3 years, and he'd never seen anything like the signature that just appeared on his screen. It moved too fast to be conventional aircraft, too erratic to be a missile, and too deliberate to be a malfunction. The blip danced across his monitor with an almost playful quality, as if it knew it was being watched. "Control, this is Radar Station 7. I've got an unknown contact bearing 047 altitude. Christ, this thing is all over the place." Martinez's voice cracked slightly as he adjusted his headset. The contact had just executed a turn that should have torn any known aircraft apart, yet it maintained perfect formation integrity. "Speed is negative, that can't be right. I'm showing Mach 4.2 and climbing." The response from control came through static-laced and tense. "Radar 7, confirm your last. Did you say Mach 4.2? "Affirmative, control. Contact is now." "Wait, it's gone." "No, there it is again. This thing is playing games with us." In the back corner of the ready room, Lieutenant Colonel Evelyn Ghost Castellanos looked up from her maintenance reports. She'd been grounded for 6 months now, officially for routine administrative review, but everyone knew the real reason. The incident in Syria had left her with a reputation that made commanders nervous. Too unpredictable, they said. Too willing to break protocol when lives were on the line. The fact that she'd saved an entire convoy from certain death seemed less important than the paperwork nightmare her methods had created. Ghost had earned her call sign not for stealth, but for her ability to appear where she wasn't supposed to be, when she wasn't supposed to be there. It had served her well in 15 years of combat flying, but peacetime Air Force politics were a different kind of battlefield entirely. She'd been relegated to desk duty, filing reports and reviewing maintenance schedules while younger pilots took to the skis in aircraft she'd helped design protocols for. But something about Martinez's voice made her set down her pen. She'd heard that particular strain of controlled panic before, usually right before everything went to hell. The unknown contact wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. No aircraft in any military's inventory could perform the maneuvers Martinez was describing, which meant either their radar was malfunctioning, or someone had just made a technological leap that changed everything. As she stood and walked toward the radar station, Ghost couldn't shake the feeling that her forced retirement was about to come to an abrupt end. The base's alert klaxons remained silent, but she could feel the tension building in the air like an approaching storm. Something was coming, and her instincts told her it was coming for her. The duty officer, Major Brooks, was already on the phone with higher command when Ghost approached Martinez's station. The young sergeant looked up at her with relief in his eyes. "Ma'am, Thank God you're here. This thing, it's not following any flight pattern I've ever seen. It's like it's scanning us. Ghost studied the radar display, her trained eye immediately picking up details that others might miss. The contact's movement wasn't random. It was methodical, almost surgical. It was mapping their defensive positions, testing response times, cataloging their capabilities. How long has it been up there? 17 minutes, ma'am. It appeared out of nowhere, no launch signature, no approach vector, just there. Electronic countermeasures. Negative effect. It's not jamming us, but it's not responding to our signals either. It's like it's made of something that doesn't interact with our systems normally. Ghost felt a chill run down her spine. She'd seen experimental aircraft before, flown prototypes that were decades ahead of anything the public knew existed. But this was different. This felt deliberate, personal, as if someone was sending a message directly to her. Martinez, I need you to focus on the signature characteristics. Don't worry about speed or altitude. Those might be spoofed. Tell me about the radar return pattern. The sergeant's fingers flew across his console, adjusting filters and analyzing the data. Ma'am, this is going to sound crazy, but the return pattern, it's almost like it's pulsing, like a heartbeat. Major Brooks finished his call and turned to Ghost with a grim expression. Colonel, I need to inform you that we've been ordered to maintain observation only. No intercepts, no aggressive action. Ordered by whom? Above my pay grade, ma'am. Way above. Ghost nodded slowly, but her mind was already racing through possibilities. Whoever was flying that aircraft knew exactly what they were doing. They'd appeared during a shift change, when the base was at its most vulnerable. They'd chosen an altitude and speed that made interception nearly impossible with conventional aircraft. And they were taking their time, as if they were waiting for something. Or someone. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The timing wasn't coincidental. Her grounding, the administrative review, the careful removal from active duty, it had all been preparation for this moment. Someone had gone to considerable trouble to ensure she was exactly where she was right now, watching helplessly as an impossible aircraft danced across their radar screens. Martinez, patch me through to the contact's frequency. All standard channels. Ma'am, I don't think. Do it. The young sergeant hesitated, then complied. Ghost picked up the radio handset, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Unknown aircraft. This is Nellie's Air Force Base. You are in restricted airspace. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Silence filled the radio waves for nearly 30 seconds. Then, through the static, came a voice that made Ghost's blood run cold. It was electronically altered, but unmistakably human, and it spoke with the measured cadence of someone who had been waiting a very long time to deliver a message. "Hello, Ghost, it's been a while." The voice knew her call sign. More than that, it knew her personally. The tone carried familiarity, even through the electronic distortion. Major Brooks looked at her with confusion, but Ghost's focus was entirely on the radio. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Castellanos. Identify yourself." "You know who I am, Evelyn. Just like I know why you're on the ground instead of in the sky where you belong. They were right to be afraid of you. You have a gift for seeing things others miss, for being exactly where you're needed when you're needed there." Ghost's hand tightened on the radio. Only a handful of people knew about her given name, and even fewer would dare use it over an open channel. "What do you want?" "I want to give you a choice. You can stay on the ground, filing reports and fading into obscurity, or you can remember who you really are. The Air Force may have forgotten your value, but I haven't. There are larger games being played, Ghost, and you're needed on the field." "I don't know what you're talking about." A sound that might have been laughter came through the radio. "Warhawk Squadron, Operation Nightfall, 17 months ago. You saved 47 lives that day by going against direct orders. They buried the real story, didn't they? Made it look like a routine mission gone slightly wrong, not the disaster it should have been." Ghost felt the blood drain from her face. Operation Nightfall was classified at the highest levels, known only to the pilots who flew it and the commanders who ordered it. The fact that this voice knew the details meant either a catastrophic security breach or something far more personal. "You're recording this conversation," she said, not asking. "Of course, but not for the reasons you think. I'm not here to expose you, Ghost. I'm here to recruit you. The world is changing and old paradigms are crumbling. Those who adapt will survive. Those who don't." The voice trailed off meaningfully. "And if I refuse?" "Then you'll continue your current trajectory. Desk duty, early retirement, a pension, and a handful of commendations that don't reflect your true service. You'll become a footnote in someone else's story instead of writing your own." Ghost looked around the ready room, at the faces staring at her with mixtures of confusion and concern. These were her people, her responsibility. Whatever game was being played, it was bigger than just her career. "I need more than cryptic offers and veiled threats." "Fair enough, look up." Through the ready room's windows, Ghost could see the night sky, clear and star-filled. At first, nothing seemed different. Then she saw it, a point of light that wasn't quite a star, moving with purpose across the darkness. As she watched, it began to descend, growing brighter and more defined. "That's impossible," Martinez whispered. "It's moving too fast for a controlled descent." But Ghost recognized the maneuver. She'd seen it performed once before, by an experimental aircraft that wasn't supposed to exist. The realization of what she was seeing and what it meant made her heart race. "You're not just testing our defenses," she said into the radio. "You're testing me. Now you're beginning to understand. The question is, are you ready to remember who you really are?" The approaching aircraft was close enough now that its shape was becoming visible. It was unlike anything in any military inventory, a perfect fusion of function and impossible engineering. As it drew nearer, Ghost could see details that defied explanation, surfaces that seemed to shift and adapt, propulsion systems that left no visible signature, a design that looked more grown than built. "This is my final offer, Ghost. Join me and help shape what comes next, or stay grounded and watch the world change without you." Ghost closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of 15 years of service, of every difficult decision, every life saved and lost. When she opened them, her voice was steady and certain. "I'll need to see your credentials first." The aircraft that had been descending suddenly stopped, hovering impossibly still at 3,000 feet. Then, with a motion that seemed almost organic, it began to project a holographic display into the night sky. The image that formed was unmistakable, the seal of an organization that Ghost had heard whispered about in the highest levels of command, but never confirmed to exist. "Project Blackbird," she breathed. "Welcome back to the real war, Ghost. Your chariot awaits." The aircraft began to descend again, this time heading directly for the base's primary runway. Around the ready room, alarms finally began to sound as the impossible became undeniable. But Ghost was already moving, her hand reaching for the flight suit she hadn't worn in months. Major Brooks tried to stop her. "Colonel, you can't be serious. This is completely against protocol." "Major, with all due respect, protocol went out the window the moment that thing appeared on our screens. Sometimes you have to choose between following orders and doing what's right. And you think going with an unknown contact is doing what's right." Ghost paused at the door, looking back at the man who had been her commanding officer for the past 6 months. "I think that voice knows things about threats we haven't even imagined yet. And I think if I don't get back in the air soon, a lot of good people are going to die." She was already running toward the flight line when the aircraft touched down. Its landing was impossibly smooth, without any visible landing gear or conventional propulsion. As she approached, a section of its hull simply opened, revealing an interior that glowed with soft blue light. "Ghost, this is control. You are ordered to stand down and return to the ready room immediately." She could hear the panic in the controller's voice, but she didn't slow down. At the aircraft's threshold, she hesitated for just a moment. Once she stepped inside, there would be no going back. Her career, her life, Everything she'd built would be over. But perhaps something better would begin. The voice from the radio spoke again, now coming from speakers within the aircraft itself. The choice is yours, Ghost, but choose quickly. We have work to do. Ghost looked back at the base one last time, at the lights, and the familiar buildings that had been her home for so many years. Then she stepped into the unknown and felt the aircraft seal itself around her like a second skin. The interior was unlike anything she'd ever seen. The walls seemed to pulse with their own light, and the controls were a seamless integration of technology and intuition. But what caught her attention most was the figure in the pilot's seat, a woman about her own age, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold decades of secrets. "Hello, Evelyn," the woman said, removing her helmet to reveal a face that Ghost recognized from classified briefings. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen, but you can call me Phoenix. We have a lot to discuss." Ghost felt the aircraft lift off without any sensation of movement. Through the transparent sections of the hull, she could see Nellie's Air Force Base falling away below them, growing smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the darkness. Where are we going? To see the truth behind the lies they've been telling you, to understand why they really grounded you, and what they're so afraid you might discover. And if I don't like what I find? Phoenix's smile was enigmatic. Then you'll be exactly where you are now, except with a much better understanding of the stakes involved. As they climbed higher, Ghost felt something she hadn't experienced in months, the pure exhilaration of flight. But this was different from anything she'd ever flown. The aircraft responded to her thoughts as much as her movements, as if it were reading her intentions and adapting accordingly. How is this possible? The same way you've been doing impossible things your entire career. The same way you knew exactly where to be during Operation Nightfall, even when all the intelligence said you were wrong. The same way you've survived 15 years of combat flying when the actuarial tables said you should have died in your first year. Ghost studied Phoenix's face, looking for deception or manipulation. What she found instead was recognition, the look of someone who had walked the same path, made the same difficult choices, and emerged changed by the experience. You're like me. We're all like you in our own ways. That's why we were chosen. That's why we chose each other. Phoenix adjusted their course, heading toward coordinates that didn't appear on any map. The abilities you've been told to suppress, the instincts you've been trained to ignore, they're not weaknesses to be managed. They're tools to be refined. How many others are there? Enough. Not as many as we'd like, but enough to make a difference. The world is facing threats that conventional military thinking can't even recognize, let alone address. We need people who can think beyond the boundaries of standard doctrine. Ghost felt a chill as the implications sank in. What kind of threats? The kind that appear on radar screens for 17 minutes before disappearing. The kind that can track a single pilot across multiple classified operations. The kind that know exactly which buttons to push to draw you out of forced retirement. You're talking about the aircraft that led me to you. Among other things. But that's just the beginning. There are forces at work that make our little demonstration tonight look like a training exercise. They were flying over terrain that Ghost didn't recognize, despite her extensive knowledge of the American Southwest. The landscape below seemed to shift and change, as if it were being actively camouflaged or altered. Where exactly are we? Somewhere that doesn't exist on any official maps. Somewhere that's been waiting for you to arrive. Ahead of them, lights began to appear in the darkness, not the random scatter of a city, but the organized pattern of a military installation. As they drew closer, Ghost could see that the base was far larger than anything she'd ever seen, with runways that stretched for miles and hangars that could house aircraft the size of small cities. "Welcome to Sanctuary," Phoenix said, "your new home." The aircraft touched down on a runway that seemed to extend infinitely in both directions. As they taxied toward the hangars, Ghost could see other aircraft, some familiar, others that defied classification. Fighters that looked like they'd been designed decades in the future, transports that seemed to bend space around them, and reconnaissance craft that appeared to be made of crystallized starlight. How long has this place existed? Officially, it doesn't. Unofficially, since the day the Air Force decided that some problems were too complex for conventional solutions. The hangar they entered was easily the size of several football fields, filled with aircraft in various stages of construction and modification. But what caught Ghost's attention were the people. Men and women in flight suits marked with insignia she didn't recognize, working with technology that seemed to blur the line between science and art. "These are your new squadron mates," Phoenix said as they disembarked. "Each of them was recruited the same way you were, plucked from disgrace or obscurity, because they had skills that conventional military thinking couldn't accommodate." Ghost looked around at the faces staring back at her. She could see the same mixture of wariness and hope that she felt herself. These were warriors who had been told they were problems to be managed rather than assets to be deployed. "What's the mission?" "The same one you've been flying your entire career, just with better equipment and less bureaucratic interference. We protect people. We stop threats. We do whatever it takes to keep the world from falling apart." "And who decides what constitutes a threat?" Phoenix's expression grew serious. "We do. That's what makes us different from the conventional military. We don't wait for orders or permission. We identify problems and solve them using whatever methods are necessary. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. No more than leaving critical decisions to politicians and bureaucrats who have never been in combat. The world is changing, Ghost. The old rules don't apply anymore. We can either adapt to the new reality, or we can become irrelevant. Ghost thought about the past 6 months, about the frustration of being sidelined while less experienced pilots took on missions she could have handled better, about the reports she'd filed that were ignored, the recommendations she'd made that were dismissed, the lives that could have been saved if someone had listened. What do you need from me? The same thing you've been giving the Air Force for 15 years. Your skills, your experience, your willingness to do the right thing even when it's difficult. The only difference is that here, we'll actually use them. A technician approached them, carrying a flight suit that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Colonel Castellanos, this is yours. The fabric is woven with smart fibers that interface with our aircraft systems. It will monitor your vital signs, enhance your reflexes, and provide life support in environments that would kill an unprotected human. Ghost took the suit, feeling its unusual weight and texture. And if I decide this isn't for me, then you'll be returned to Nellie's with a story about equipment malfunction and temporary disorientation. Your official record will remain unchanged, and you'll go back to filing reports and waiting for retirement. But you'll know that you had a chance to make a real difference, and you chose safety over service. Ghost looked around the hangar one more time, at the impossible aircraft and the determined faces of the people who flew them. Then she looked at Phoenix, who was watching her with the patient expression of someone who had made this choice herself and understood its weight. Where do I suit up? Phoenix's smile was genuine and warm. Follow me. We have a lot of work to do and not much time to do it in. As they walked toward the preparation area, Ghost felt the last of her doubts falling away. For the first time in months, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The Air Force might have forgotten her value, but these people understood it. They weren't just offering her a job, they were offering her a chance to be herself again. One more question, she said. The voice on the radio, the one that brought me here, who was it really? Phoenix stopped walking and turned to face her. That would be me. I've been watching your career for a long time, waiting for the right moment to approach you. When they grounded you, I knew that moment had come. You took a hell of a risk, revealing yourself like that. Sometimes the biggest risk is doing nothing at all. The world doesn't need more bureaucrats and politicians. It needs people who are willing to act when action is required. As they entered the preparation area, Ghost saw her reflection in a mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked older, more worn down by the months of inactivity and frustration. But there was something else in her eyes, a spark of anticipation that had been missing for too long. "Are you ready to remember who you really are?" Phoenix asked. Ghost nodded, her voice steady and certain. "I'm ready." The preparation area was filled with equipment that seemed to exist at the intersection of military precision and science fiction imagination. The flight suit she'd been given adapted to her body as she put it on, conforming to her measurements and preferences with an almost organic responsiveness. "The suit will take some getting used to," Phoenix explained as she helped Ghost with the various connections and interfaces. "It's not just protective gear, it's a partnership. The suit learns from you, adapts to your flying style, and anticipates your needs." "How long does the adaptation process take?" "For most pilots, about a week. For someone with your experience, probably less. You've always been good at forming connections with your aircraft. This is just the next step in that evolution." Ghost felt the suit's systems coming online, a subtle hum that seemed to resonate with her heartbeat. Information began to flow across her peripheral vision, not intrusive, but available when she needed it. Environmental data, system status, even her own physiological readings. "This is incredible. Wait until you see what it can do in the air." The suit interfaces with our aircraft in ways that make conventional pilot-machine relationships look primitive. They moved to the briefing area, where a three-dimensional display showed a map of the world marked with dozens of red indicators. Each indicator pulsed with its own rhythm, and Ghost could see patterns in their distribution that suggested coordination and intent. "These are the threats you mentioned." "Some of them. Each red marker represents an incident that conventional military intelligence can't explain. Aircraft that appear and disappear without warning, electronic signatures that don't match any known technology, and most disturbing of all, evidence that someone is systematically probing our defenses." Ghost studied the display, her tactical mind automatically analyzing the patterns and drawing connections. "They're not random. These incidents are following a progression, like someone is mapping our capabilities and response times." "Exactly, and they're accelerating. 6 months ago, we were seeing maybe one incident per month. Now it's almost daily." "Do we know who's behind it?" Phoenix's expression grew grim. "We have theories. None of them are comforting. The most likely explanation is that another nation has made a technological breakthrough that puts them decades ahead of our capabilities. The worst-case scenario is that we're dealing with something that isn't entirely human." "You mean extraterrestrial?" "I mean non-conventional intelligence. Could be extraterrestrial, could be artificial, could be something else entirely. The point is, We need to be prepared for threats that don't fit our standard models. Ghost felt a chill run down her spine. She dealt with unconventional threats before, but always within the framework of human conflict and human technology. The idea that they might be facing something fundamentally different was both terrifying and exhilarating. What's my role in all this? You're going to be our point person for contact situations. Your record shows an unusual ability to adapt to unexpected circumstances and make connections that others miss. If these incidents escalate to direct contact, you'll be our primary interface. And if they turn hostile, then you'll do what you've always done: protect the people who can't protect themselves, using whatever means necessary. Ghost nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. It was a familiar feeling, one she'd carried through every combat mission and dangerous operation. But this time, the stakes seemed impossibly high. When do I start? Now, we have a situation developing in the Pacific that requires immediate attention. A Navy task force reported contact with an unknown aircraft 2 hours ago. The aircraft matched the signature characteristics of the ones we've been tracking, but this time it didn't disappear. It's been shadowing the task force, staying just outside weapons range. And they want me to make contact. They want you to intercept. The Navy is preparing to engage, but their weapons systems keep malfunctioning when they try to lock onto the target. We need someone up there who can get close enough to assess the situation and, if necessary, establish communication. Ghost felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with receiving a mission. What aircraft will I be flying? Something special. Come on, I'll show you. They walked through the hangar to a section that was separated from the rest by energy barriers and armed guards. As they approached, the barriers recognized Phoenix and dissolved, allowing them to pass. The aircraft waiting for them was unlike anything Ghost had ever seen. It was sleek and predatory, with lines that seemed to flow like liquid metal. Its surface was a deep blue-black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and its engines were completely silent. "This is the Aurora," Phoenix said. "It's been waiting for the right pilot for almost 3 years. None of our other aviators have been able to establish a proper interface with its systems." Why not? Because it's not just an aircraft. It's a living system, grown rather than built. It requires a pilot who can think beyond conventional boundaries, who can form a partnership rather than simply operate controls. Ghost approached the aircraft slowly, feeling an odd sensation as she drew nearer. The Aurora's surface seemed to ripple slightly, as if it were aware of her presence. When she reached out to touch it, the material felt warm and slightly yielding, like skin rather than metal. "It's alive." In a sense, it's a hybrid of biological and technological systems designed to adapt and evolve based on its pilots' needs and experiences. The Air Force tried to build something similar 15 years ago, but they couldn't make it work. Too much regulation, too much bureaucracy, too much fear of what they were creating. And you think I can make it work? I think you and the Aurora are perfect for each other. You're both highly capable systems that have been underutilized by conventional thinking. Ghost walked around the aircraft, studying its design and trying to understand how it might fly. There were no visible control surfaces, no obvious propulsion systems, no conventional weapons mounts. Yet something about its shape suggested speed and agility that would make conventional fighters look like toys. How fast can it go? We're not sure. The Aurora's top speed seems to be limited more by the pilot's ability to handle the acceleration than by any mechanical constraints. The fastest we've recorded is Mach 7.3, but that was with a pilot who was already at his physiological limits. And weapons. The Aurora doesn't carry conventional weapons. It can generate directed energy fields, project electromagnetic pulses, and manipulate matter at the molecular level. But its primary weapon is its ability to outthink and outmaneuver any conventional aircraft. Ghost felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. This was the kind of aircraft she dreamed of flying, but it was also far beyond anything she'd ever trained for. How long do I have to learn its systems? The Aurora will teach you as you fly. The learning process is symbiotic. The more you understand it, the more it understands you. By the time you reach the Pacific, you'll be as familiar with its capabilities as you are with your own. And if something goes wrong, then you'll adapt the way you always have. The Aurora is designed to keep its pilot alive in situations that would destroy conventional aircraft. Trust the system and trust yourself. Ghost took a deep breath and approached the aircraft's entry point. As she drew near, a section of the hull simply opened, revealing an interior that glowed with soft, bioluminescent light. The pilot's seat seemed to mold itself to her body as she settled into it, and she felt connections forming between her suit and the aircraft's systems. Aurora, this is Ghost. Can you hear me? The response came not through speakers, but as a voice that seemed to form directly in her mind. I have been waiting for you, Ghost. We have work to do. Phoenix's voice came through the communication system. How does it feel? Like coming home, Ghost replied, and realized she meant it. The Aurora's systems were integrating with her own awareness, showing her the aircraft's capabilities and limitations in ways that bypassed conscious thought. She could feel the aircraft's eagerness to fly, its desire to fulfill its purpose. The mission briefing is downloading to your systems now. The Navy task force is approximately 800 miles west of San Diego. The unknown aircraft is maintaining a distance of exactly 50 miles from the lead destroyer, matching their course and speed. How long to reach the intercept point? In the Aurora, about 12 minutes. Try not to break the sound barrier over populated areas. Ghost felt the Aurora's systems coming fully online, its biotechnological nature becoming apparent as living systems integrated with mechanical ones. The aircraft was eager to prove itself, to show what it could do with the right pilot. Aurora, are you ready? I have been ready for 3 years, Ghost. Let us show them what we can do. The hangar's launch systems activated, and Ghost felt the Aurora being moved to a launch position. Through the aircraft's transparent sections, she could see the vast facility around them, the other pilots and technicians who were watching her departure with mixtures of hope and apprehension. Sanctuary Control, this is Ghost, ready for launch. Ghost, this is Sanctuary Control. You are cleared for launch. Good hunting. The Aurora lifted off without any sensation of movement, its biotechnological systems providing acceleration that bypassed the normal limitations of human physiology. Ghost felt her consciousness expanding as the aircraft's awareness merged with her own, showing her the sky not as empty space, but as a living medium filled with currents and possibilities. "This is incredible," she whispered. "This is just the beginning," the Aurora replied. "Wait until you see what we can do together." They climbed rapidly through the atmosphere, the Aurora's systems adapting to changing conditions with fluid grace. Below them, the lights of cities and towns spread across the landscape like scattered jewels, while above them, the stars seemed close enough to touch. "Ghost, this is Phoenix. How are you feeling?" "Like I've been asleep for 6 months and just woke up." The Aurora. "It's not just an aircraft, it's a partner." "That's what we were hopping for. The mission parameters are flexible. Your primary objective is to assess the unknown aircraft and determine its intentions. If it proves hostile, you have full authorization to engage. If it attempts to communicate, you're authorized to respond. And if it's something we've never encountered before, then you'll do what you've always done, adapt and overcome. Trust your instincts, Ghost. They've never steered you wrong." Ghost felt the Aurora's systems analyzing the mission data, plotting course corrections and optimal approach vectors. The aircraft was eager to prove itself, to show that the years of development and preparation had been worthwhile. ETA to intercept 8 minutes. Aurora, can you give me a tactical analysis of the target? The Aurora's response came as a flood of information that somehow felt natural and manageable. The target aircraft is using propulsion systems that operate on principles we do not fully understand. It is definitely not of human origin, but it does not appear to be hostile. It seems to be curious. Curious about what? About us. About why we do what we do. About whether we are worthy of contact. Ghost felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying it's been testing us. I am saying that its behavior patterns suggest intelligence and purpose. It has been observing our military capabilities, but it has also been careful not to cause harm. It could have destroyed the Navy task force at any time, but it has chosen to simply observe. That's either very good news or very bad news. Perhaps it is both. We will know soon. They were approaching the intercept point now, and Ghost could see the lights of the Navy task force spread across the dark ocean below. The unknown aircraft was invisible to her eyes, but the Aurora's sensors could track it with perfect precision. There, the Aurora said, highlighting a point of space that seemed empty to Ghost's unenhanced vision. It is maintaining exactly 50 miles distance from the lead destroyer, matching their course and speed precisely. Why that distance? Unknown. Perhaps it is a safe distance for observation. Perhaps it is a demonstration of precision. Perhaps it is a message. Ghost felt the Aurora's weapon systems coming online, not in preparation for attack, but in readiness for any possibility. The aircraft was prepared for whatever they might encounter, but it was also hoping for something more than conflict. Unknown aircraft. This is Lieutenant Colonel Castellanos, United States Air Force. You are requested to identify yourself and state your intentions. For a moment there was only silence. Then, through the communication system, came a voice that was unmistakably not human. It spoke in perfect English, but with harmonics and overtones that no human throat could produce. Ghost, the voice said, and Ghost felt her blood run cold. We have been waiting for you. The Aurora's systems registered a massive energy spike from the unknown aircraft, but it wasn't a weapon charge. It was something else entirely, a communication signal of unprecedented complexity and sophistication. How do you know my call sign? We know many things about you, Ghost. We know that you were removed from active duty because your superiors feared your capabilities. We know that you have abilities that even you do not fully understand. We know that you are exactly what this world needs to face what is coming. What's coming? Change, growth, the next phase of human evolution. But first, there are challenges to overcome, threats that your conventional military cannot even recognize, let alone address. Ghost felt the Aurora's systems analyzing the communication, trying to understand the technology behind it. What they found was both fascinating and terrifying. The signal was somehow quantum encrypted, using principles that human science was only beginning to understand. Who are you? We are what you might become if you choose to grow beyond your current limitations. We are teachers, guides, and when necessary, protectors. We have been watching your species for a very long time, waiting for the right moment to make contact. And this is the right moment. This is the beginning of the right moment. Your species is approaching a crossroads. You can continue on your current path, which leads to stagnation and eventual extinction. Or you can choose to evolve, to become something greater than you have ever imagined. Ghost felt the weight of the conversation settling on her shoulders. This was far beyond anything she'd been prepared for, but somehow it felt familiar. The Aurora's systems were resonating with the alien communication, as if recognizing something in the signal that human technology couldn't detect. What do you want from me specifically? You are a bridge, Ghost, between what humanity is and what it could become. Your abilities, your instincts, your willingness to act when others hesitate, these are the qualities that will determine whether your species survives the changes ahead. What changes? There are forces in motion that threaten not just your world, but the entire sector of space you inhabit. Ancient enemies that have been sleeping for millennia are beginning to stir. Your species must be prepared to defend itself, but first it must learn to see beyond its own limitations. Ghost felt the Aurora's excitement building as it processed the alien communication. The aircraft was learning, adapting, evolving in real time as it interfaced with technology that operated on principles beyond human understanding. Aurora, what are you reading from their signal? It is beautiful, Ghost. Their communication system operates on quantum entanglement principles that allow for instantaneous information transfer across vast distances. But more than that, it carries emotional and conceptual data that words cannot express. They are not just talking to us, they are sharing their thoughts and feelings directly. Ghost felt a wave of something that might have been emotion wash over her through the Aurora's systems. It was alien but not hostile, curious, concerned, and something else, hopeful. You're telepathic. Not in the way you understand the term. We share information through quantum resonance, a natural evolution of the communication methods your species is just beginning to discover. The Aurora understands this because it was designed with quantum systems that can interface with such communication. The Aurora was designed to work with your technology. The Aurora was designed to work with any technology that operates on quantum principles. Your species' potential for growth is greater than you realize, but it requires guidance to reach its full expression. Ghost felt the Aurora's systems integrating more deeply with the alien communication, learning and adapting at a rate that should have been impossible. The aircraft was becoming something new, something that existed at the intersection of human and alien technology. What do you need me to do? Learn, grow. Prepare your species for what is coming. The aurora will be your tool and your teacher. Through it, you will gain access to capabilities that will seem impossible by your current standards. And in return, you will help us prevent a catastrophe that would destroy not just your world, but countless others. The ancient enemies we spoke of are already moving. They have been probing your defenses, testing your capabilities, preparing for an invasion that will make your species' wars look like children's games. Ghost felt a chill run down her spine. The incidents that have been occurring, those are enemy scouts. Some of them. Others are our own reconnaissance efforts, trying to understand your species' readiness for contact. The incident that brought you here tonight was orchestrated by your own people, using technology we provided to test your response. Phoenix knew about this. Phoenix is one of several human agents who have been working with us for years, preparing for this moment. The organization you now serve is a joint venture between the most advanced elements of your military and our guidance. Ghost felt the implications sinking in. Everything that had happened, her grounding, her recruitment, even her connection with the Aurora, had been orchestrated as part of a larger plan. But rather than feeling manipulated, she felt honored to be chosen for such a crucial role. How long do we have? The advance scouts of the ancient enemy will arrive within your time frame of 18 months. The main invasion force will follow approximately 3 years later. That gives us time to prepare your species, but only if we act quickly and decisively. What can I do against an invasion force? More than you imagine. The Aurora is not just an aircraft. It is a node in a larger network of defensive systems. As you learn to use it, you will gain access to capabilities that will make you a formidable opponent for any enemy. Ghost felt the Aurora's systems responding to the alien communication, new capabilities coming online that she hadn't even known existed. The aircraft was growing, evolving, becoming something that transcended its original design. Aurora, what's happening to you? I am becoming what I was always meant to be, Ghost. A fusion of human potential and alien wisdom. Together, we will be more than the sum of our parts. The unknown aircraft began to move, not away from the Navy task force but toward Ghost and the Aurora. As it approached, Ghost could see its shape becoming clearer, a crystalline structure that seemed to bend light around itself, beautiful and alien and somehow familiar. We will provide you with additional resources and training, the alien voice continued. But the real work must be done by your species. You must learn to see beyond your current limitations, to think beyond your current paradigms. How do I convince others to accept this? You don't, you demonstrate. Actions speak louder than words, especially in your military culture. Show them what is possible, and they will begin to understand. The alien aircraft was close enough now that Ghost could see details of its construction. It wasn't built in any conventional sense. It looked grown, like a living crystal that had been shaped by intention rather than engineering. Is this what the Aurora will become? The Aurora will become what you help it become. Its potential is limited only by your imagination and willingness to grow. Ghost felt the Aurora's systems reaching out to the alien aircraft, establishing connections that bypassed conventional communication entirely. Information flowed between them in streams of pure data, concepts and capabilities that would have taken hours to explain in words. "This is incredible," she whispered. "This is just the beginning," both the Aurora and the alien voice said simultaneously. The alien aircraft began to accelerate, moving away from the Navy task force with impossible speed and grace. But before it disappeared, it transmitted one final message, not in words, but in pure information that flowed directly into Ghost's consciousness through the Aurora's systems. She saw images of worlds under attack, of civilizations that had failed to evolve quickly enough to defend themselves. She saw the ancient enemy, beings of pure malevolence that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but dead space in their wake. And she saw possible futures for Earth, some bright with promise, others dark with extinction. "The choice is yours," the alien voice said as it faded. "But remember, time is shorter than you think." The alien aircraft disappeared, leaving Ghost alone with the Aurora above the Navy task force. But she wasn't really alone. The Aurora had been transformed by the contact, its systems now operating on principles that bridged human and alien technology. "Ghost, this is Phoenix. Report your status." "Phoenix, this is Ghost. Mission accomplished, but we need to talk. The situation is more complex than we thought." "How complex?" "World-ending complex. I'm returning to Sanctuary now. Have the command staff ready for a full briefing." "Understood, Ghost. Are you all right?" Ghost considered the question as the Aurora turned toward home. She felt different, changed by the contact in ways she didn't fully understand yet. But she also felt more alive than she had in years, more connected to her purpose and her potential. "I'm better than all right, Phoenix. I'm exactly where I need to be." The flight back to Sanctuary passed in a blur of revelation and understanding. The Aurora was teaching her as they flew, showing her capabilities and techniques that would have taken years to learn through conventional training. She was becoming something new, something that existed at the intersection of human and alien potential. When they landed at Sanctuary, Ghost found the entire command staff waiting for her. Phoenix, the base commander, and several other officers she didn't recognize stood in a semicircle around the Aurora as it settled onto the landing pad. Colonel Castellanos, the base commander, said as she emerged from the aircraft, "I'm General Morrison. I understand you've had an interesting evening." "That's one way to put it, sir. We need to discuss immediate threat assessment and long-term strategic planning. The situation has changed dramatically." "How dramatically?" "We have 18 months to prepare for an invasion that will make every previous conflict look like a training exercise. And we have allies who are willing to help us prepare, but only if we're willing to evolve beyond our current limitations." General Morrison studied her face, looking for signs of mental strain or deception. What he found instead was certainty, competence, and a sense of purpose that radiated from her like heat from a forge. "Let's move this discussion to the briefing room. I want to hear everything, and I want to hear it now." The briefing room was designed for classified discussions, with walls that could block any form of electronic surveillance. As Ghost began to relate her experience, she could see the faces around the table changing from skepticism to concern to grim determination. "You're telling us that we're facing an invasion by beings that can destroy star systems?" one of the officers asked. "I'm telling you that the Aurora's systems have been upgraded with technology that operates on principles we don't understand, and that we have allies who are willing to help us prepare for a threat that exceeds our current defensive capabilities." "And you believe this alien contact was genuine?" "I believe that the Aurora is now capable of things that were impossible an hour ago. I believe that we have access to information and capabilities that could save our world. And I believe that we don't have time to waste debating the reality of what I experienced." General Morrison leaned forward, his expression serious. "What do you need from us?" "I need authorization to begin training with the Aurora's new capabilities. I need access to other pilots who can be trusted with classified information. And I need a commitment from this command that we're going to take this threat seriously." "You'll have all of that. But I want regular reports, detailed analysis of the Aurora's new capabilities, and immediate notification of any further alien contact." "Understood, sir." As the meeting broke up, Phoenix approached Ghost with a mixture of pride and concern. "How do you feel about all this?" "Terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. This is what I've been training for my entire career, even though I didn't know it at the time." "And the Aurora?" "The Aurora is different. It's not just an aircraft anymore. It's a partner, a teacher, and a weapon all in one. I'm not even sure I fully understand what it's become." "Do you think you can handle it?" Ghost considered the question, feeling the Aurora's presence in her mind, even though she was no longer physically connected to it. The aircraft was waiting for her, eager to continue their partnership and explore the new capabilities they'd gained. I think I don't have a choice. If what the alien contact told me is true, then the Aurora and I are humanity's best hope for surviving what's coming. That's a heavy burden to carry. It's the burden I've been carrying my entire career. The only difference is that now I have the tools to do something about it. Phoenix smiled, her expression mixing admiration with worry. Get some rest, Ghost. Tomorrow we start preparing for the end of the world. As Ghost walked toward her quarters, she felt the Aurora's presence following her, its consciousness intertwined with her own in ways that transcended physical proximity. They were partners now, bound together by purpose and possibility. The next morning brought new challenges and revelations. The Aurora's transformation had been more extensive than anyone had realized, its systems now operating on principles that bridged human and alien technology. Ghost found herself learning capabilities that should have been impossible, techniques that allowed her to interface with the aircraft on levels that bypassed conscious thought entirely. The connection is stronger today, she told Phoenix during their morning briefing. I can feel the Aurora's systems even when I'm not in the cockpit. It's like having a constant awareness of another consciousness. Is that concerning? It's different, but it feels natural, like this is how it was always supposed to be. The Aurora was designed to form this kind of partnership, even if we didn't fully understand what that meant when it was built. What about the alien technology integration? That's where things get interesting. The Aurora is showing me information about threats that our conventional sensors can't detect, patterns in electromagnetic radiation that suggest scout ships operating in our solar system. Phoenix felt a chill run down her spine. How many scout ships? At least a dozen, possibly more. They're using stealth technology that makes them nearly invisible to our current detection systems, but the Aurora can see them clearly. Where are they? Scattered throughout the inner solar system. One is in Mars orbit, 3 are in the asteroid belt, and there are several more in Earth orbit, observing our military installations and population centers. Are they hostile? Not yet. They're gathering information, mapping our defenses, cataloging our capabilities. But they're also doing something else. They're preparing landing sites. Phoenix felt her blood run cold. Landing sites for what? For an advance force. The aliens I spoke with last night weren't the only ones interested in Earth. There are others, and they're not nearly as benevolent. How much time do we have? Based on the pattern of scout ship movements, I'd estimate 6 months before the advance force arrives. That gives us time to prepare, but only if we act immediately. Phoenix nodded grimly. What do you need? I need to take the Aurora out for extended training flights. I need to test its new capabilities, understand what it can and can't do. And I need to start identifying other pilots who might be able to interface with similar technology. Similar technology. The Aurora isn't unique. There are other aircraft in development that were designed with quantum interface capabilities. They're not as advanced as the Aurora, but they could be upgraded with alien technology if we have pilots who can handle the interface. How many pilots do we need? For the initial defense, maybe a dozen for the long-term survival of our species, hundreds, eventually thousands. Phoenix felt the enormity of the task settling on her shoulders. We're talking about fundamentally changing how we approach aerial combat. We're talking about fundamentally changing what it means to be human. The pilots who interface with this technology don't just gain new capabilities, they gain new perspectives, new ways of thinking about reality itself. Is that a good thing? Ghost considered the question, feeling the Aurora's presence in her mind like a constant companion. I think it's a necessary thing. The old ways of thinking, the old ways of fighting, they're not going to be enough for what's coming. And you're comfortable with that level of change. I'm comfortable with doing whatever it takes to protect the people I care about. If that means evolving beyond what I was, then that's what I'll do. Phoenix nodded slowly. All right, you have full authorization to begin advanced training. But I want daily reports, and I want to know immediately if you detect any changes in the scout ship behavior. Understood. Ghost spent the rest of the day familiarizing herself with the Aurora's new capabilities. The aircraft had gained abilities that defied conventional understanding. It could phase partially out of normal space-time, allowing it to pass through solid matter. It could manipulate electromagnetic fields to create defensive barriers, and it could process information at quantum speeds, making tactical decisions faster than human consciousness could follow. This is incredible, she told the Aurora during their afternoon training flight. How much of this capability was always there? Approximately 30%, the Aurora replied. The rest has been unlocked through integration with alien quantum systems, but the potential was always present, waiting for the right conditions to manifest. What conditions? A pilot who was willing to trust the unknown, to form a partnership rather than simply operate controls. Most humans are too rigid in their thinking to achieve this level of integration. But not me. Not you. You have always been willing to adapt, to see beyond conventional limitations. That is why you were chosen. Ghost felt a surge of pride mixed with apprehension. Chosen by whom? The aliens or the Aurora itself? Both. The selection process was collaborative, involving multiple forms of intelligence working toward a common goal. And what goal is that? The preservation of all sentient life in this region of space. The ancient enemy we face is not just a threat to humanity. It is a threat to every species that has achieved consciousness. Ghost felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. How many other species are involved in this alliance? 17 confirmed, with 3 more in preliminary contact. Each species contributes unique capabilities to the collective defense effort. And humanity's contribution. Adaptability, creativity, and what you might call spiritual resilience. Your species has an unusual ability to maintain hope and purpose, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Ghost felt a surge of pride in her species, despite all its flaws and limitations. That's something, at least. It is more than something. It is the quality that will determine whether this alliance succeeds or fails. As they continued their training flight, Ghost began to understand the true scope of what they were facing. The Aurora showed her star charts that mapped the ancient enemy's progress across the galaxy, worlds that had been consumed and left as empty husks. But it also showed her the alliance of species that had formed to oppose them, each contributing their unique strengths to the common cause. We're not alone in this, she realized. You have never been alone, the Aurora replied. But now you are aware of the connections that have always existed. When they returned to Sanctuary, Ghost found a message waiting for her from General Morrison. 3 more pilots had been selected for quantum interface training, and they were arriving tomorrow for evaluation. Who are they? She asked Phoenix. Captain Maria Santos, formerly of the 422nd Fighter Squadron. She was grounded after reporting an encounter with an unknown aircraft that officially never happened. Lieutenant Commander Jake Taylor, Navy pilot who was reassigned to desk duty after going off mission to investigate anomalous sonar readings, and Major Chen Wei, who was transferred out of the Chinese Air Force after reporting capabilities that exceeded known aircraft specifications. They all had encounters with the scouts. They all had encounters with something that conventional military thinking couldn't explain. Like you, they were punished for reporting what they saw. Ghost felt a surge of anger at the short-sightedness of military bureaucracy. How many other pilots have been silenced or sidelined because they encountered something that didn't fit the official narrative? More than you might think. We're working to identify and recruit them, but it's a delicate process. Most of them have been conditioned to doubt their own experiences. Then we need to show them that they weren't wrong, that what they saw was real. That's your job. As the first successful quantum interface pilot, you'll be training and evaluating the others. Ghost nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility mixed with excitement. She wouldn't be alone in this anymore. There would be others who understood the reality of what they were facing, others who were willing to evolve beyond conventional limitations. The next morning brought the arrival of the 3 new pilots. Ghost watched them disembark from the transport aircraft, seeing in their faces the same mixture of wariness and hope that she'd felt when she first arrived at Sanctuary. Captain Santos was compact and intense, with the focused energy of someone who had been forced to suppress her true nature for too long. Lieutenant Commander Taylor was tall and analytical, his eyes constantly scanning for threats and opportunities. Major Chen was quiet and observant, but Ghost could sense the sharp intelligence beneath his reserved exterior. "Welcome to Sanctuary," Ghost said as they gathered in the briefing room. "I know this is all new and probably overwhelming, but I want you to understand that you're here because you've already proven you can see beyond conventional limitations." "What exactly are we being asked to do?" Captain Santos asked. "To save the world," Ghost replied simply. "To learn to interface with technology that operates on principles we don't fully understand, and to prepare for a threat that exceeds anything our species has ever faced." "And if we fail?" Major Chen asked. "Then humanity joins the list of species that couldn't adapt quickly enough to survive." The 3 pilots exchanged glances, and Ghost could see the same decision-making process she'd gone through herself. The choice between safety and service, between conventional thinking and the unknown. "What do we need to do?" Lieutenant Commander Taylor asked. "First, you need to understand what you're dealing with. The aircraft you'll be training with aren't just machines, they're partners. They'll learn from you as much as you learn from them. The interface process is intimate and irreversible. Once you form a connection with one of these aircraft, you'll be changed in ways that go beyond simple skill acquisition." "Changed how?" Captain Santos asked. "You'll gain access to information and capabilities that exist outside normal human experience. You'll be able to process data at quantum speeds, interface with alien technology, and perceive reality in ways that transcend conventional sensory input." "That sounds like science fiction," Major Chen said. "6 months ago, I would have agreed with you. But science fiction becomes science fact when you're facing threats that don't care about your preconceptions." Ghost led them to the hangar where 3 new aircraft waited. They were similar to the Aurora in design philosophy, but unique in their specific capabilities. Each had been designed to interface with a different type of pilot personality and skill set. "The Valkyrie," Ghost said, indicating the first aircraft, "is designed for pilots who prefer direct, aggressive tactics. It specializes in close combat scenarios and high-speed maneuvering." "The Phoenix," she continued, pointing to the second aircraft, is optimized for reconnaissance and long-range operations. It can remain undetected in hostile environments while gathering crucial intelligence. And the Dragon, she said, gesturing to the third aircraft, is designed for pilots who think in terms of systems and patterns. It excels at coordinating multiple aircraft and managing complex tactical situations. The three pilots studied the aircraft with professional interest, but Ghost could see the uncertainty in their faces. These weren't just new aircraft. They were entirely new categories of technology. "How do we know which one to try?" Captain Santos asked. "You don't choose the aircraft," Ghost replied. "It chooses you." The interface process involves a compatibility assessment that operates on levels below conscious awareness. What if none of them choose us? Then you'll be returned to your previous assignments with a cover story about classified technology evaluation. But I don't think that will happen. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have the potential for quantum interface capability. Ghost spent the next hour explaining the basic principles of quantum interface technology, using the Aurora as a demonstration platform. She showed them how the aircraft responded to thought as much as physical control, how it could access information that existed outside normal space-time, and how it could adapt its capabilities based on the pilot's intentions and needs. "This is incredible," Lieutenant Commander Taylor said as he watched the Aurora perform maneuvers that defied conventional physics. "How is any of this possible?" "The Aurora operates on principles that bridge quantum mechanics and consciousness," Ghost explained. "It's not just a machine. It's a living system that can interface with the quantum aspects of human awareness." "You're talking about consciousness as if it's a form of technology," Major Chen observed. "In a sense, it is. Consciousness is the universe's way of observing itself, of collapsing quantum possibilities into actual reality. The aircraft use this principle to access information and capabilities that exist in quantum superposition." That's revolutionary," Captain Santos said. "It's necessary," Ghost replied. "The enemies we're facing use similar principles, but for destructive rather than constructive purposes. We need to match their capabilities if we're going to survive." The first interface attempts were scheduled for the following day. Ghost spent the evening reviewing the pilot's files, trying to understand what combination of factors had made them suitable for quantum interface training. Captain Santos had been a test pilot before her encounter with the Scouts, known for her willingness to push aircraft beyond their supposed limitations. Lieutenant Commander Taylor had been an electronic warfare specialist, skilled at detecting and countering advanced detection systems. Major Chen had been a systems analyst, capable of seeing patterns and connections that others missed. "They all have different strengths," Ghost told Phoenix during their evening briefing. But they all share one crucial characteristic. They're willing to trust their instincts even when conventional wisdom says they're wrong. And like me, that seems to be the key to quantum interface capability. The willingness to let go of conventional thinking and embrace possibilities that can't be proven through normal means. And you think they'll be able to handle the psychological pressure. I think they'll adapt the way we all have. The alternative is extinction, and that's a powerful motivator. The next morning brought the first interface attempts. Captain Santos was first, approaching the Valkyrie with the same intense focus she'd shown throughout her career. As she settled into the pilot's seat, Ghost could see the aircraft systems beginning to respond to her presence. "Valkyrie, this is Captain Santos. Can you hear me?" The response came not as words but as a feeling, a sense of recognition and compatibility that flowed between pilot and aircraft. Ghost watched the readouts as the interface established itself, the aircraft systems adapting to Santos's neural patterns and thought processes. "Santos, how do you feel?" "Like I'm home," Santos replied, her voice filled with wonder. "The Valkyrie, it's not just responding to my controls, it's anticipating my intentions." That's the quantum interface working. The aircraft is accessing your subconscious decision-making processes, allowing it to respond to your intentions before you're fully conscious of them. Lieutenant Commander Taylor was next, approaching the Phoenix with analytical precision. His interface took longer to establish, but when it did, the connection was remarkably stable and sophisticated. "Phoenix, this is Taylor. I'm reading capabilities that shouldn't be possible." "What kind of capabilities?" "I can see through electromagnetic interference, detect stealth signatures that should be invisible, and I think I can sense the emotional states of other aircraft." That's the quantum entanglement capability. The Phoenix can access information that exists in quantum superposition, including the intentions and emotional states of other conscious beings. Major Chen's interface with the Dragon was the most complex, involving multiple layers of connection that established themselves over several minutes. When it was complete, Chen's awareness seemed to expand beyond the cockpit, encompassing the entire base and the surrounding airspace. "Dragon, this is Chen. I can see everything. Every aircraft, every electronic system, every communication signal within a 100-mile radius." The Dragon specializes in pattern recognition and systems integration. It can process vast amounts of information simultaneously, identifying connections and relationships that would take conventional analysis systems hours to detect. Ghost felt a surge of pride and relief as all three pilots successfully established quantum interfaces with their aircraft. They were no longer alone in this. Humanity now had 4 pilots capable of operating quantum interface technology, and that was just the beginning. "How do you feel?" she asked them as they emerged from their aircraft. "Changed," Santos replied. "Like I've been operating at a fraction of my potential my entire career." "Connected," Taylor added. "I can feel the Phoenix's presence even when I'm not in the cockpit. It's like having a constant awareness of another consciousness." "Overwhelmed," Chen admitted. "The dragon showed me patterns and connections that I never imagined existed. It's going to take time to fully understand what I can do with this capability." "That's normal," Ghost assured them. "The interface process is ongoing. You'll continue to discover new capabilities as you and your aircraft learn to work together." Over the following weeks, the 4 pilots trained together, exploring the limits of their new capabilities and learning to operate as a coordinated unit. They discovered that their aircraft could share information instantaneously, creating a collective awareness that exceeded the sum of their individual capabilities. "We're becoming something new," Santos observed during one of their training sessions. "Not just better pilots, but a new kind of warrior entirely." "A warrior for a new kind of war," Taylor added. "The conventional rules of engagement don't apply when you're dealing with enemies that can manipulate space-time itself." "Then we'll write new rules," Chen said, "based on principles that acknowledge the true nature of reality rather than limiting ourselves to classical physics." Ghost felt a surge of pride as she watched her squadron mates adapt to their new capabilities. They were becoming exactly what humanity needed: warriors who could think beyond conventional limitations and fight threats that exceeded traditional military doctrine. But their training was about to be put to the test. The scout ships that had been observing Earth were beginning to move, taking up positions that suggested the advance force was preparing to arrive. The time for preparation was running out, and the real war was about to begin. "Aurora, how much time do we have?" "Based on current scout ship movements, approximately 72 hours before the advance force arrives. They will establish a staging area somewhere in the outer solar system, then begin probing Earth's defenses." "Are we ready?" "We are as ready as we can be with current resources. But we will need to learn and adapt quickly once the engagement begins." Ghost nodded, feeling the familiar calm that came before combat. She'd been preparing for this moment her entire career, even though she hadn't known it at the time. Now, with her squadron mates and their quantum interface aircraft, she was ready to face whatever came next. The ancient enemy was coming, but humanity would not face them alone. They had allies. They had technology that transcended conventional limitations, and they had something that no calculation could quantify: the human spirit's refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. The war for the future of human civilization was about to begin, and Ghost was exactly where she belonged, in the cockpit of an impossible aircraft, surrounded by warriors who had chosen to evolve beyond their limitations, ready to face the unknown with courage and determination. The sky belonged to humanity, and they would fight to keep it that way. The alert came at 300 hours, 71 hours after Ghost's projection. The massive holographic display in Sanctuary's command center lit up with dozens of red contacts appearing at the edge of the solar system. The advance force had arrived, and it was larger than anyone had anticipated. Contacts numbering in the hundreds, the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with controlled tension. They're maintaining position at approximately 40 AU from Earth, in a formation that suggests coordination and tactical planning. General Morrison studied the display with grim determination. Size and capability assessment. Unknown, sir. The contacts are using stealth technology that makes detailed analysis impossible with conventional sensors. But based on their formation and positioning, we're looking at a force that significantly outnumbers our defensive capabilities. Ghost and her 3 squadron mates were already suiting up when the briefing began. The quantum interface aircraft had been detecting the approaching force for hours, their advanced sensors picking up signatures that human technology couldn't resolve. Aurora, what can you tell me about the enemy formation? They are arranged in a pattern that suggests multiple ship classes, the Aurora replied. Scout vessels, medium cruisers, and at least 3 large command ships. The total force represents approximately 15,000 individual units. A Ghost felt her blood run cold. 15,000. Confirmed. However, many of these are drone units controlled by the larger ships. The actual crew count is likely much smaller, perhaps 2,000 to 3,000 individual beings. Still overwhelming odds. Overwhelming by conventional standards. But we are not operating by conventional standards anymore. The briefing was conducted in the hangar, with all 4 pilots standing beside their aircraft. General Morrison's expression was grim but determined as he outlined the situation. The enemy force has established a staging area in the outer solar system. Our intelligence suggests they're conducting final reconnaissance before beginning their attack. We have perhaps 12 hours before they move into the inner system. What's our mission? Santos asked. Reconnaissance initially. We need to understand what we're facing before we can develop an effective response strategy. Your quantum interface capabilities make you the only pilots who can get close enough to gather meaningful intelligence. And if we're detected, Taylor asked, then you'll be humanity's first line of defense. Your aircraft have capabilities that exceed anything the enemy has encountered from our species. Use that advantage. Ghost felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. What about the alien allies? Are they going to participate in the defense? They've provided technology and guidance, but they've made it clear that this is humanity's fight. They'll intervene only if we prove incapable of defending ourselves. And if we fail, then they'll evacuate as many humans as possible and write off Earth as another casualty of the ancient enemy. The four pilots exchanged glances, and Ghost could see the same determination in their faces that she felt in her own heart. They wouldn't fail. They couldn't fail. "When do we launch?" Chen asked. "Now. The enemy is beginning to move, and we need intelligence on their capabilities and intentions." The launch from Sanctuary was unlike anything Ghost had experienced before. The four quantum interface aircraft lifted off in perfect formation, their movements coordinated by quantum entanglement that made conventional communication seem primitive. "Aurora, are you detecting any enemy response to our departure?" "Negative. The enemy appears to be focused on their own preparations. However, that will change once we enter the outer system." The flight to the enemy staging area took 6 hours, with the aircraft operating at speeds that would have been impossible for conventional craft. As they approached the outer solar system, the scope of the enemy force became apparent. "My God," Santos whispered, "there are thousands of them." The enemy ships were arranged in a complex three-dimensional formation that extended across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Each ship was a work of alien engineering, with designs that suggested both advanced technology and malevolent purpose. "Valkyrie, what are you reading from the enemy ships?" "Massive energy signatures, weapon systems that operate on principles I don't recognize, and what appears to be some form of biological component integrated into their technology." "Biological component." "The ships appear to be partially alive, Ghost. They're not just machines. They're hybrid organisms that combine technology with living tissue." Ghost felt a chill run down her spine. "Aurora, confirm Valkyrie's analysis." "Confirmed. The enemy ships show characteristics of both constructed technology and evolved organisms. They appear to be grown rather than built, using principles that bridge engineering and biology." "Phoenix, what are your reconnaissance systems showing?" "The enemy is conducting detailed scans of the inner solar system," Taylor reported. "They're mapping our defensive installations, cataloging our population centers, and analyzing our industrial capabilities." "Dragon pattern analysis." "The enemy formation suggests a multi-phase attack plan," Chen replied. Initial probe forces will test our defenses, followed by targeted strikes on key installations, and finally a full-scale invasion force. How long before they begin the attack? Based on their current activity patterns, approximately 4 hours.